greatest privilege to become the Mayor of the City of Derby. A city in its 40th year, and a mayoralty that has existed since 1638, according to Wikipedia. It's a role that continues to be held in high regard by the public, and I will do my best to maintain its reputation. I want to thank the outgoing Mayor, Councillor Winter, first of all, for filling the role so well over the last year. I want to thank Councillor Stanton very much for the nomination, and to all my fellow councillor colleagues. I do appreciate the support. The biggest thank you of all is to the good people of Mackworth who elected me in the first place. Very well done. So who is this new Mayor? I was born in Derby at the City Hospital, and I was educated entirely under the comprehensive system. Not necessarily comprehensively educated. My dad worked for Rolls-Royce, my mum worked for the Celanese, and in the 70s they ran a small business together. And so they're no longer with us, but they gave me a great upbringing. My two older brothers have always seemed to have out-achieved me, and I'm not just saying that because they're here, but I've always been very comfortable with that. I did rather drift through school, to be fair. I stayed on to sixth form just because my friends did. I went to art college because I couldn't think of anything else to do. But during that year, I did meet a couple of insanely talented young musicians, and we started rehearsing together. And we added a quality bass player. And just over 2 years later, we were signed by the world's biggest record label. We didn't sign to them because they were the biggest. We signed to them because they were the first label to offer us a deal. And we knew from there journey. That's the truth. This is very much the abridged version coming up. So we made records. We did lots of tours, which sounds exciting and glamorous, and sometimes it was. But the usual reality was that you spent most days in a dark club or theatre. So when you got the chance to explore, you needed to take it. This is my coming on. So our first visit to New York was one of those occasions. New York in 1991 was a city on the edge. It had almost become Gotham, with thousands of people living on the streets and an average of 6 murders a day. One of New York's boroughs, the Bronx, had for 30 years or so been one of the most notorious areas on earth, and had become the murder, arson, rape and aggravated burglary capital of the United States. So obviously I wanted to go there. It was only about 3 or 4 miles from where we were staying. I didn't want to do anything stupid like walk round or anything. I wanted to go around in a car or maybe an armoured car just to see what it was really like, because there was no Google Earth in those days, obviously. So when we met the EMI USA staff in New York, I asked a few of them if they'd taken to the Bronx. But they were having none of it. Most of them seemed to be afraid of travelling around Manhattan, let alone the Bronx. But one member of staff called Curtis did say that he used to live in the Bronx, and he'd taken them. He said, I'll come over and pick you up on Sunday. So by Sunday, the trip to the Bronx had become a family outing. Every single member of our group and entourage was coming along. Which basically meant we had 7 white, long-haired, leather-jacketed guys going to the Bronx. So when Curtis turned up, I was mildly panicked by the fact that there was no car. He said we were going to go on the subway. So we got the train, and we had to change trains at 125th Street, and if you know New York at all, that's the middle of Harlem. Now, all my life, I've struggled to understand why people are often treated differently because of the colour of their skin. But until that point, having arrived in Harlem, I never felt like it was me that was different. The train stopped, the doors opened, and there must have been 1,000 people on the platform. Every single one of them was black or Hispanic, and I swear they were all staring at us, like we'd come from another planet. And we all felt very, very conspicuous. But there was no problem. We got the next train, we got off at the Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, and we just literally stepped outside of the subway station when a large group of guys walked past us and started shouting incomprehensible things at us. However, they didn't seem angry or aggressive, it just appeared to be banter. At this point, I'm thinking we really are two nations separated by a common language. And I've also, at this point, given up hope of going around in a car. We were definitely walking around the United States' most dangerous area, looking like we'd come from another world. Curtis told us with a straight face, don't take any photographs, don't think you're the police. But I think, by that stage, the horse had already gone. We turned into a residential street. The houses were single-storey, wooden construct, like you see on the films. And some people were sitting outside of their houses, and like the group we'd just passed, these people were shouting things at us, and again, none of us could understand what they were on about. But all the shouting attracted other people from the other houses to come out, and they were shouting and gesturing as well, and pretty soon we had a whole street of people shouting and making communication with us that we did not understand. The reaction of the locals had clearly spooked Curtis, and we took a left turn off this street to head away from the residential area. At the bottom of the next street, there was a large gang of youths who had noticed us. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed one of them had started to run towards us. He was only a kid, he was only 11 or 12. He ran across the road towards us, and he was carrying something very carefully in an upright position. To us naive British people, the thought process was, he's only a kid. It must be a toy gun. Another one breaks from the group, and he was of a similar age. He runs up the other side of the road, and he is shouting something that finally we all understand. 3 words. The first one was shoot, the second one was there, and the third word I won't possibly say here. And he is shouting this repeatedly. He doesn't look happy, and this is not banter. The amazing thing is, because we were all so disbelieving that this was a real gun, none of us reacted in the slightest. We just kept calmly walking on like it was a nice Sunday afternoon stroll, and I think this probably confused these kids completely, and they just carried on past us. Curtis, who was who was of Italian heritage and quite dark-skinned, was now totally white. He urged us to get out there very, very quickly, and thankfully we didn't come across any other locals on that trip. I seem to remember Curtis having a few days off sick afterwards. I suppose the moral of the story is, never take our peaceful city for granted. My school days were largely uneventful, but it was where I met the person who is now the mayoress of Derby, my wonderful wife, Julia. We have now been together for 3 decades. That's not 3 years, 3 decades. And behind this moderately successful man is a genuinely great woman. She will be a fabulous ambassador for this city. As a mother, she knows the right thing to say. As a teacher and head teacher, she sets the standard. And as a wife, she is right with infuriating regularity. We are fortunate to have 2 usually excellent children as well. So far it's been okay. Who are here today despite it being a school day. The sword hasn't been used yet. I don't remember if there was anything in particular that triggered our move towards fostering. We must have made contact with the council at some point in 1999, and we were approved in the year 2000. Originally, plans always change. Originally our plan was to help 1 child. But 17 years later, we're still doing it, and I'm so pleased that at least some of our previous young people, now adults, are here today, all doing well and all still part of our lives. And we are so proud of you like you wouldn't believe. I had the honour of giving one of them away when she got married a few years ago, and that really was a special privilege. In the mid-90s, when the band was going through a transition period, I went to work for then DSS, and like pretty much every civil servant we'll ever meet, I only intended to go there for a few months. 22 years later, and I'm still there, and officially I'm still there till next Wednesday, but I've actually left. They've been my long-suffering employer, they really have, as they've generally had to play second fiddle to me, initially playing gigs, then doing an open university degree, becoming a foster carer, and then obviously getting elected and doing all the different committees. But they've been very supportive over, to be fair. I've met some great friends, some of them are here. And they really have helped me out many times, kept me sane. I'm very grateful for them. I was elected councillor for Mackworth in 2010, and being a councillor surpassed all of my expectations. I played a part on the Children and Young People Scrutiny Board, Licensing Committee, Adoption Panel, and the Board of Derby Museums Trustees, among other responsibilities. I've been chair of the Mackworth Board 3 times with my good friends Councillor Pegg and Councillor Froggett. I think we've made real progress with them. So what am I going to do? I'm going to raise money for the following charities. Firstly, the Derbyshire Children's Holiday Centre. I actually got that right the first time I've said it correctly. That's in Skegness. This is a no-brainer for me. It gives genuinely deprived kids from Derby and Derbyshire the chance to have a holiday, often their first holiday, and sometimes it's their first time outside of Derby. Children First, we've dealt with Children First as foster carers, and they support and arrange contact between family members, so it's very familiar to us. The Red Cross, primarily because of the work it does helping refugees and asylum seekers that contact their relatives overseas. Safe and Sound, who do a great job of fighting the scourge of child sexual exploitation. And finally, the always inspirational and always educational Derby Museums. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living through the most unpredictable period in our lifetimes. We have so much earth-shattering news right now, and I've got every sympathy with the BBC, Sky and ITN in terms of thinking, what should we focus on this hour, let alone this day? When we've got a threat of nuclear war on the Korean Peninsula, chemical warfare and a multi-sided civil war in Syria, the latest Sean Spicer press conference, elections across Europe, Scottish independence, Brexit, Frexit. Sadly, there is one very predictable story that struggles to get a look in due to all the big news. 2014 gave us the record global temperature until 2050, when we had another record global temperature, and then 2016, a record global temperature. The record stuck. Now, our records only go back to the 19th century, but scientists believe that it hasn't been this warm for 115,000 years. And there hasn't been this much carbon in the atmosphere for 4 million years. This hasn't been fixed. It hasn't gone away, despite the fact that you don't hear about it quite so much. So I want to promote the innovations, the infrastructure and the initiatives that will help reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and hopefully clean our air as well. I want to help promote fostering in the city. We need foster carers now as much as we've ever done. I will no doubt be a regular visitor to our museums as they continue to tell our incredible story, but at the same time shaping our future. I want to visit the wards of the Royal Derby Hospital, as much as anything to show our gratitude for the work that goes on there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And maybe it goes without saying that I'll be visiting many of our local schools. I may need a couple of years. Anyway, thank you very much.